Donald Trump's renewed obsession with Greenland has once again pushed one of the world's most remote territories into the center of global geopolitics. What once sounded like an outlandish real estate joke during Trump's earlier political career has now evolved into a far more serious and unsettling narrative, one that raises fundamental questions about sovereignty, international law, NATO unity, and the future of the Arctic. Trump's language has become sharper, more direct, and far less diplomatic. He has openly stated that the United States needs Greenland for national security and has repeatedly suggested that America will get it one way or another. This framing, that Greenland is not a matter of choice but of necessity, has alarmed European leaders and deeply unsettled Denmark, a close U.S. ally and NATO member that still holds formal sovereignty over the island. Greenland is the world's largest island, sparsely populated but strategically priceless. Located between North America and Europe, it sits at the heart of the Arctic region, an area that is rapidly transforming due to climate change. As Arctic ice melts, new shipping routes are opening, military access is expanding, and previously unreachable natural resources are becoming accessible. For decades, the Arctic was treated as a frozen backwater of global politics. Today, it is increasingly viewed as the next major theater of great power competition. Trump's fixation on Greenland must be understood within this larger context, not as a sudden impulse, but as part of a broader shift in how powerful nations view the far north. From Washington's perspective, Greenland already plays a crucial role in American defense. The United States operates Thule Air Base, now known as Patuxent Space Base, which is a vital component of America's missile warning and space surveillance systems. U.S. military planners see Greenland as a forward shield against potential missile threats from Russia, and increasingly as a strategic observation post in a future conflict involving China. Trump has repeatedly argued that allowing Greenland to remain outside direct U.S. control leaves a dangerous gap in America's security architecture. In his worldview, alliances and treaties matter less than raw strategic dominance, and geography itself becomes a justification for ownership. However, this logic clashes head-on with international norms and the political reality on the ground. Greenland is not an unclaimed territory. It is a self-governing region within the Kingdom of Denmark, with its own parliament, government, and strong national identity. While Denmark controls foreign affairs and defense, Greenlanders have the legal right to pursue full independence if they choose. Importantly, Greenland's population, around 56,000 people, overwhelmingly rejects the idea of becoming part of the United States. Polls consistently show that a large majority of Greenlanders oppose U.S. control, whether through purchase, coercion, or military pressure. For them, Trump's statements are not abstract geopolitical theory. They are direct threats to their right to self-determination. Denmark, meanwhile, finds itself trapped in an almost impossible position. On one hand, it must defend Greenland's sovereignty and the principle that borders cannot be changed through intimidation, especially between allies. On the other hand, Denmark is fully aware that Greenland's long-term trajectory points toward greater autonomy and eventual independence. Copenhagen is now being forced to spend enormous political and financial capital defending a territory that may one day leave the Danish realm by democratic choice. Trump's pressure accelerates this dilemma, turning a gradual internal political process into an international crisis. European leaders have responded with a mix of disbelief and concern. The idea that a U.S. president would openly threaten or coerce a NATO ally over territory strikes at the very foundation of the post-World War II order. NATO is built on trust, on the assumption that members do not turn their power against each other. Trump's Greenland rhetoric challenges this assumption in a way that no external enemy ever could. If the United States can pressure Denmark today, critics ask, what prevents similar logic being applied elsewhere tomorrow? This fear of precedent is one of the reasons Europe has reacted so strongly, even beyond Denmark itself. Trump, however, appears largely unmoved by these concerns. He frames European objections as weakness, bureaucracy, or outdated thinking. In his view, the world is returning to an era of great power competition, where influence is measured by control of territory, resources, and strategic positions. Greenland, rich in rare earth minerals, hydrocarbons, and untapped natural wealth, fits perfectly into this mindset. As China dominates global rare earth supply chains and Russia expands its Arctic military footprint, Trump sees Greenland as a prize the U.S. cannot afford to lose. His message is simple and blunt. If America does not secure Greenland, someone else will. This framing is also designed for a domestic audience. Trump often portrays himself as the only leader willing to act decisively in defense of American interests, unburdened by what he calls globalist constraints. Greenland becomes a symbol, proof that he is thinking big, thinking strategically, and willing to challenge old rules. By presenting the issue as a national security emergency, Trump attempts to normalize extreme options, including economic pressure or even military force, without explicitly committing to them. The ambiguity itself becomes a tool of leverage. Inside Greenland, Trump's rhetoric has complicated an already sensitive political debate. While all major Greenlandic parties support eventual independence, they differ sharply on timing and economic readiness. Some politicians fear that Trump's pressure could undermine Greenland's bargaining position, turning their independence movement into a pawn in U.S.-European power struggles. Others argue that Denmark's inability to shield Greenland from American pressure proves that closer ties with Washington, even direct negotiations, may be inevitable. This internal division is precisely what makes the situation so volatile. Denmark has responded by announcing increased investment in Arctic defense, infrastructure, and security, partly to demonstrate to Washington that it takes Greenland's protection seriously. Yet, U.S. officials continue to argue that Denmark is not doing enough. This constant shifting of the goalposts suggests that the issue is not capability but control. For Trump, shared responsibility is insufficient. Only ownership provides certainty. The wider implications are profound. If Trump succeeds in redefining territorial acquisition as a legitimate tool among allies, it would signal a dramatic break from decades of international practice. The principle that borders are inviolable, except through mutual consent, has been one of the cornerstones of global stability. Undermining it risks encouraging similar behavior elsewhere, emboldening stronger states to pressure weaker ones under the banner of security. At the same time, Trump's Greenland push highlights the growing strategic importance of the Arctic itself. Climate change has transformed the region from a frozen barrier into an emerging frontier. Nations are racing to secure shipping lanes, military access, and mineral wealth. Greenland, by virtue of its size and location, sits at the center of this transformation. Trump's rhetoric may be extreme, but the underlying competition is very real. Ultimately, the Greenland crisis is about more than one island. It is about how power is exercised in the 21st century, about whether alliances are built on shared values or transactional strength, and about whether small nations and communities retain the right to decide their own future in an era of intensifying great power rivalry. Trump's insistence that the United States wants Greenland at any cost exposes a worldview in which strategic advantage outweighs diplomatic restraint, and where might increasingly defines what is considered right. Whether this confrontation leads to de-escalation, prolonged tension, or a deeper fracture within NATO remains uncertain. What is clear is that Greenland, once seen as distant and irrelevant, has become a focal point of global power politics. And as Trump continues to frame the Arctic as a battleground for dominance, the world is being forced to confront uncomfortable questions about sovereignty, security, and the future shape of international order.